so the deeper driver underneath that is a life that is fulfilling. Our generation is very much about that. It doesn't matter where you are globally. We're searching for meaning, and they're looking for that type of fulfillment opportunity in their work.
In China, people value the work-life balance a little bit more. I mean, when you think about people in Korea, Singapore even, like their work hours are much longer than the average Chinese person.
In fact, in Generation Asia, which is our largest study of 16,000 Asians across 10 countries, including China, you see about 78% of the 18 to 35-year-olds, and that includes people who have their first jobs, have said their happiness to them is much more important than making money. Even to the extent of the fact that 70% of the parents, the Asian parents, people who have kids, say that they would actually rather their kids do something that would make them happy than necessarily pursue something that might give them a guaranteed financial success. So I think the first thing you'll see is that, which is the sense of purpose and professionalism driving and transforming Asian corporates. I think the second thing you'll see is definitely a change in the nature of hierarchy, and either by choice or by force. The rigidity of the Asian hierarchy system is going to be challenged. I think the third thing that's going to happen is really this idea of sort of cross-cultural migration of ideas, which is going to happen within Asia.
China will make its own way. I mean, I don't think China's necessarily following the West. I think what people in China are doing is what we call cherry picking, or taking the best ideas from the West and merging that with their own culture, and then developing something probably that will be completely new. The embracing of technology here is, again, far greater and far stronger than anywhere I've seen.
I mean, they're just so mobile web savvy now. Like everyone is communicating on their phone. People are already ditching email using WeChat, for example, in China. And why wouldn't that be the natural way to communicate in business, for example?
And then we suddenly said, but hang on, there's a whole new sector appearing, which is young enterprises. And we realized as we talked about it that this was an increasing and growing area. And that third sector that I have never heard people talking about, and in the way you could hear, is actually the one you should really concentrate on.
Like we have now coffee shops that also have funds that operate the coffee shop, so that the funds can find entrepreneurs and fund them quickly and move them out. And so we have all of these young people who are going into collaborative co-working spaces because they're already all offered here in China, and they're first building their team from these collaborative co-working spaces.
From what I've seen, today's youth has a very different idea of what work should be. There is a strong subset of today's youth in China as well as Hong Kong that want something more out of work. They want something they can believe in. They want freedom to do different types of work in different places with different tools. And I think they're much more excited about work in a sense than previous generations have been.
第二来说呢，我们组最希望的愿望呢，就是 freedom 这个词了。那从 facility 这个方面的角度来看，我们做了一个对比，就是现在和我们期望中歪歪的将来。现在呢，就是大家可以看到，基本上很多 office 都是这样的，有很多个隔间，你就坐在这里，那 F 就坐在这里，你的老板在这里，你的 pantry 在这里，你的 meeting room 在这里，一切都是规定好的，你就必须要 like this。Okay, so 以后 in the future 我们最大的一个 idea 就是说 no more 就是你自己不告诉你要坐在这里，就是完全灵活。这个办公场所呢，就是它可以有很丰富的就是硬件去支持你达到你想坐在哪里就坐在哪里，就是 you decide where you want to sit。所以就是它的硬件能够充分的实现你在任何一个视角、任何一个环境，不管它是在正常的办公室，还是在一个露天的花园，还是怎么样，它都能够有相应的硬件支撑，让你可以满足你想在任何的地方办公。这是我们的一个核心概念。然后与此同时呢，和就是刚才总的来说，我们希望我们能有一个 fancy 的 merchandise， 然后也希望能够 super 的 work and life balance。 这个就是 facility 方面的 freedom。当然，我们这样的话就要求我们有明确的那个目标，就是 task， 就是你能够明确我可以完成这个 task， 那么其他的时间你想怎么安排就怎么安排。
Today we talked a lot about how in policy and in maybe planning and in technology and in infrastructure, China might be able to leapfrog and offer something very different. But the thing that you can't discount, or the thing that is very hard to leapfrog, is culture. And you might be able to shorten a generation's time to learn something new, but it's going to be almost impossible to leapfrog a type of learning.
I look out and see a city, a country which is building at a colossally fast pace. And you can build fast, but can you build communities that fast? And I think we've got a really sure head for China in that sense of what will happen.
If you look at it, and if you look at these places where these people do hang out, you find that places are much more authentic to that particular culture. One would assume that they're being taken over by this global idea of being a global citizen and so on and so forth. But what really surprised us was how many of them said about, if I'm not mistaken, about 89% of the 18-35-year-olds felt that there was too much loss of traditional values.
With modernity and urbanization comes an increased level of loneliness because of changes within societal, the fabric of society, whether you're talking about community, the communalness, connection, FaceTime with people within the family unit, but also within a local community. As those things change with urbanization and modernity, then there's a deeper need for connection and a deeper need for a sense of self and fulfillment. And that's going to come into the workplace. You don't know what you want until you see it, oftentimes. And it requires creators to first create it and then storytellers to tell it.